I just graduated high school last year, which is when what I'm about to tell you took place. Easter has always been a fun time of the year for my friends and I, but not for the reason you think. We've outgrown those childish Easter egg hunts that everyone does when they're little, and I honestly cringe when my parents make me participate in one with my younger cousins. A few years ago, I can't remember exactly when, my friends and I created a fun twist on the typical egg hunt format and devised our own game. It's not really that special. It's basically just a mashup of manhunts and an Easter egg hunt. It's two teams like manhunts, but the seekers are also responsible for hiding and protecting a few eggs. If the hiders manage to capture all the eggs, they win, and if the seekers don't find all the hiders within a certain time frame, the hiders also win. There are some other dumb rules, like how the seekers can't be camping where any of the eggs are hidden, and stuff like that, but that's not super relevant to the story. It was the Thursday before Easter, and school was canceled the next day for whatever reason, so we decided to have a sleepover that night. It was me, Jake, Race, Chuck, Arthur, and Raz. Raz wasn't actually his real name. His last name was Razzie, but everyone just called him Raz. His family had the biggest house by far, so we'd always chill there. He lived in the middle of nowhere, and his backyard bordered a decently sized wooded area. Plus, his parents were out of town until Friday night, so we'd have the place to ourselves. We were just chilling, playing video games in his basement, when Chuck suggested we play manhunts. We were all down, so we rounded up whatever flashlights Raz had in his garage. We used a random number generator on Jake's phone to pick random teams, just to keep it fair and unpredictable. I was on a team with Chuck and Raz, and we were seeking. Jake and Arthur were hiding. Raz's mom had a ton of plastic eggs upstairs, so we grabbed a couple of them and all of us went outside. We'd played back there a bunch of times before, so we already knew the layout. The far boundary was the fence line, and the other edges were the creek and the back slope that ran down towards Raz's neighbor's horse pasture. We set timers on our phones to give the hiders enough time to hide, and us enough time to hide our eggs. Once 10 minutes passed, the game had officially begun. I should also mention that the sun had already gone down, but it wasn't completely dark out yet. Once the timer went off, we all split up to cover more ground. I veered left into a thicker patch of trees while Raz and Chuck went the other way. I kept my hand over my flashlight, just skimming the ground every few steps so that I wouldn't trip, but I mostly relied on the moonlight to see. The game was way more fun when you actually felt like you were sneaking around, and besides, if one of the hiders saw a flashlight beam coming toward them, they'd just book it. A few minutes in, I thought I saw something move 20 or 30 feet in front of me. At first, I couldn't tell if I was imagining it, but then I saw it again. I instantly turned my flashlight off and froze in place. Someone was crouching behind a tree up ahead. Whoever it was must not have seen me, otherwise they'd definitely have run off. They weren't moving, like they were trying to stay perfectly still. My first guess was that it was Race. He always picked spots close to the seekers, thinking no one would expect it. I decided to try to get the jump on him. I crouched down a bit myself and started moving slowly, trying to circle around behind him. When I got close enough, I sprang forward and lunged at whoever was crouching there, tapping him hard on the shoulder and yelling, "Gotcha!" But the second he turned around, I felt a wave of fear wash over me. It wasn't any of my friends. It was a grown man with slicked back hair and these wide open eyes, like he was on drugs. His clothes were all torn up and he smelled awful. I was so taken aback that I didn't even realize what was going on. Before I could react, he tackled me to the ground. I screamed as I hit the dirt, but before I could yell out again, his hands were around my throat. He was pressing down with all his weight, and in that moment, I honestly thought my life was over. I couldn't breathe, and I didn't have the strength to overpower him from that position. And then, out of nowhere, he stopped. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flashlight beam bouncing off the trees somewhere behind us. One of my friends must have been running towards us. The guy must have seen the light too, because he jumped off without saying a word and straight up ran into the woods, disappearing almost immediately. I just laid there, gasping for air, still too stunned to move. A few seconds later, Chuck reached me, helped me up, and said he saw the whole thing. I wanted to chase after that guy, but Chuck told me that was an awful idea. So the two of us instead ran back towards the house. Chuck called the rest of the crew and told everyone to go back to Raz's house immediately. Once we all reconvened, I told everyone what happened. After Chuck filled in the rest of the gaps, everyone started talking over each other. But then, Arthur said something that shut all of us up. He said that before the game even started, meaning before the initial 10 minutes were up, he saw two people walking through the trees near where he was hiding. He said they were moving slowly, like they were scouting or waiting for something, and he'd actually gotten pissed at the time because he thought it was two of the Seekers teaming up and breaking the rules. That's when me, Chuck, and Raz all looked at each other and immediately shook our heads. None of us had been walking together, and there was no way we could have gotten all the way to their side in such a short time frame anyway. The realization hit us all at once. If it wasn't any of us, then there were at least 3 other people out in those woods that night. One who attacked me, and 2 more who were moving around before the game had even started. In that moment, I realized how smart I had been for listening to Chuck and not chasing after my attacker. He might have saved me from walking headfirst into an ambush. I told everyone we needed to call the cops. I mean, I had literally been attacked. But the second I said it, Raz cut me off. He got weirdly serious and said, "No, we're not calling anyone." I asked him what in the world he was talking about, and he said he was technically grounded, and beyond that, he wasn't allowed to host anyone while his parents were out of town, so involving the cops would get him in serious hot water. I told him this was a serious situation and worth involving the police, but he didn't budge. The rest of the guys were kind of stuck in the middle. No one wanted to put Raz in a bad spot with his parents, but I could tell that they were all having a hard time just pretending that the whole thing didn't happen. Eventually, I caved and agreed to not call the police and try to just enjoy the rest of the night, but I was seriously shaken. I ended up going to bed early that night and left Raz's house the next morning before anyone else was awake. This might surprise some of you, but I actually wasn't too affected by this experience. I'm very much of the mentality that things happen and people have to move on, so that's what I did. Anyway, about a week after everything went down, Raz told us all that he felt bad just leaving those Easter eggs out in the woods, so he had gone to collect them even though he was scared out of his mind. We all got a good laugh out of that, but his comment made me think back to that night and contemplate my life a little. I have no idea what those men were doing in those woods that night, but I can confidently say that I won't be spending the night at Raz's place anytime soon. Anyway, I'm at college now and I'm far, far away from Raz's backyard, but being as Easter is coming up next month, I got reminded of this story.
For many generations, Easter bunnies always had to do a predicament job. All they had to do is hide the eggs for the children. It's a tradition year for the bunnies. No matter what the bunnies they do, they always have to find some way to make a job more understand. However, there is one bunny who is basically, it's something that he never been expected to himself until the day when he had done something to himself. Barnaby wasn't the ordinary rabbit. For generations, his line had served a singular scared purpose: to be the guardians of the great vernal moon, a celestial orb that appeared only once in a year, on the eve of the resurrection, Easter Eve. The moon was the sources of the all renewal, a beacon that pulsed with the light of the earth's rebirth. Waking the flowers, the streams, and the very air form their winter sleep. But this year, the woods are wrong. A chilly unnatural shadow had fallen across the ancient pines. The gray struck. A monstrous spirit wolf, the form of smoke and sprite, had returned, seeking to devour of the vernal moon and plunge the world into the potential frozen twilight. The guardians were few. The ancient badger had fallen to the cold. The hawk was wounded. Only Barnaby remained, small and fast, and struck well, knew utterly defenseless against its teeth. No matter how much rabbit can really face off against a wolf, because wolf has always been a sense of attack. Because wolf are our natural predators. Barnaby huddled beneath the root arch of a massive ox, clutching the moon shard, a pulsating piece of the great oak he had been entrusted to hide. But to the respect, he never even got the chance of it. The woods, usually alive with the soft sounds of spring night, was eerily silent. Then a loud growl resounded through the moss. The air started freezing. The struck was close. But sometimes when rabbits don't even understand how much they had to hide themselves, because it's a remarkable choice. Run quickly before you hide. Panic, primal, and terrifying crawled at Barnaby. His instinct told him to run to the burrow, to disappear it into the earth. But if he did, the light would be lost. Soaring would never come. Spring would never come. The shuck's eyes burns like coal appeared between the trees. There was a massive shadow, its breath streaming the air. It presents an active void. It lunged. Barnaby didn't think. He didn't run away. He ran towards the danger. As the monster's jaw began to close, Barnaby did the only thing that the guardian could do. He leaped, not to escape, but to defend. And as he did, he didn't just hold the moon shard. He absorbs it. He pressed it into his small rabbit chest, offering his entire life to its lights. The words shattered into an impossible presence. Then a great surging heart erupted from Barnaby. It sounds like it's a rapid beating. No matter how much it feels like when your body has been expected, a complete strange feeling, like as if it's hurting. And then it started to change its appearance into something different that the rabbit did not understand until Barnaby did. It was an energy of a renewal, the light conquering dark, focus into the singular despite of active will. The shuck, blinded by the sudden, intense brilliance, recoil. The wood itself seems to hold its breath, a visual distortion, the very texture of the reality sniffing and shifting. Emitted from where the rabbit and the shadow collide, the light swirled, and within that blindly flukes, a strange beautiful fusion began. The soft fur of a rabbit acknowledged hardened into the bursty gray guard fur. The long ears shifted, thinking and moving into the top to the top of a glowing, powerful skull. Delicate legs lengthen, muscles branching and strengthen. Paws are becoming heavy and clawed. The process was violent yet graceful. A king-fed explosion of life force, where the rabbit spirit had been one of a timid flight. It is now infused with the moonvast's untamable power. The light cleared as quickly as it had appeared. The great transformation was complete. Also, the rabbit's ears began to shrinken into a wolf's ear, and the rabbit's cotton tail grew into a tail, like a wolf's tail. And its muzzle and the nose and the mouth also had to grew the size of a wolf. And that's how the transformation is completed. Standing in a mosaic clearing, facing the bewildered Shuck, was no longer a rabbit. It was a wolf, massive, silver-furred, with eyes that hold the warm glow of the vernal moon. The creature of the forest, but also more than that. It was the forest predator, imbued with the life force of an Easter Eve. Barnaby, in his new form, did not feel fear. He felt a deep, resonant strength. He let out a howl, not of a predator, but of a guardian, a powerful cleansing sound that echoed through the pines. The sound itself was too much of a shock. The creature built only of a shadow. The smoke monster worth its shadow form breaking apart as it was consumed by the very light it sought to swallow. Driven back into the eternal darkness. It ain't easy. Whenever that transformation is complete, you can't go back to your own body. Sometimes it's just not that easy when you feel like your body is in a new form, but then it's consumed of a darkness that's been held for centuries around the forest and the woods. Wood's internal shadow. The woods sigh in relief. The moss glow greener. The buds on the tree pulse with a hidden life. The moon, now safe and shining brightly, began to rise over the horizon. Barnaby, the new wolf of the vernal moon, began to run. He did not run to hide. He ran to ensure that every corner of the forest felt the light of the rebirth. The guardian had not failed. It had simply found its true form. Now, ain't that interesting? You can never imagine what happened if you see an actual transformation that's been struck around the entire centuries of the vernal moon. At least you begin to understand how it feels when your body becomes the new form of its eternal creature.